Welcome to Highline Excel 2013 class video number 20. Hey, if you want to download this workbook, Business 214 Week 4, click on the link below the video. In this video, we want to see how to look up and retrieve records, and we're going to see a bunch of different examples. Now, here's our situation. We have a human resources table. We have ID, last name, first name, email, and phone. Now, this is just a small data set. We could have lots of columns here, right? But our goal is to retrieve a record. So here I have done data validation dropdown, so I can select whichever ID, and I instantly want to see last, first, email, and phone. Well, we can use VLOOKUP for this. Equals VLOOKUP. Now I'm going to click on this ID here, and I'm going to lock this. I'm going to copy it to the side, and every single one of these cells needs to be locked down on the ID, comma, the table. Here's the table. I'm not going to highlight the field names, just the inside of the table. F4, comma. Well, last is in the second column. First is in the third. Email is in the fourth, and phone is in the fifth column. So I'm just going to type a 2 here for now, comma, and we're doing exact match. 0, close parentheses. Now remember what we said. If you are sure that you can sort the list, now this is sorted, right? But if you're sure it's always going to be sorted, and you have a huge data set and you're worried about formula calculation time, then you can sort this list and use approximate match, which is the default. But we're going to go ahead and use exact match here. Control Enter. Now I'm going to copy it over. And the cheap and easy way to extract a record is just to go and edit each one of the formulas. The column index for first name, 1, 2, 3, is 3. And then I edit this. This is 4. And then I edit this. This is 5. So if you go look at spreadsheets all around the world that extract records, this is a very common technique. However, if you have lots of formulas, then that gets to be difficult. So another way we could go is, if you're allowed to put the column numbers for the data you want to retrieve above wherever it is you're retrieving the records, we can just go equals VLOOKUP, lock this down with F4, get our whole table, F4 to lock it, comma, and the column index, we're just doing a relative cell reference. So as we copy, it'll move from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. Comma, 0 for exact match, close parentheses. Control Enter. Copy it over. Oh, that is so cool. Now I have all of it. We have a bunch of examples, 6 examples. I have them all linked to this top cell. So if I change this to 1, instantly we should get our record extracted. That is just awesome. Now let's look at another example. In both of these examples, right, we had to hard code the number in. In this example, this is certainly a good example if you can put the column numbers above where you're extracting the data. Or sometimes people put it above the table, but not always can you type that data into the cell. So let's look at another great solution. Now, we've learned about VLOOKUP. That's our only lookup function so far. We're going to learn about the match function. The match function is a lookup function. But the match function, actually before we even say what it is, what column is phone in? And think about it this way. What if we had a lookup function that could look up the text phone within this one-way range, meaning it's just one row. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things in the list. What if we asked the question, which position is phone within our list? Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How about email? 1, 2, 3, 4. How about ID? 1. First name is 3. Well, guess what? What we're really asking for is, hey, what is the relative position, meaning related to all the items in the list? What is the word first? What is its position here? 3. The relative position is 3. So guess what? Match is a lookup function. But match, when it looks something up, it'll return the relative position of the item in the list. So if I say equals match, Oh, look, lookup value. That's just like our VLOOKUP, relative cell reference, comma, and it says lookup array. The VLOOKUP function said table, right? Lookup table. I'm going to go ahead and highlight a one-way array, because if you're looking through a list of items, it's got to be a one-way array, meaning it's just a list. It's either going to be orientated horizontally, or the match function can do vertical too. So that's different than VLOOKUP. It can do a one-way array, meaning one row and many columns, or it can do one column, many rows. And we'll see both as we move through the next couple of videos. Now I need to lock that, F4, comma, and check this out. 1, that's exactly like that true approximate match in VLOOKUP. 0, that's exactly like exact match in VLOOKUP. This -1, whereas 1, we always looked for the first bigger value, and when we bumped into the first bigger value, we jump back. -1 would bump into the first smallest value and then jump back. Now, on our next sheet over here, match in VLOOKUP, I have notes exactly about this match function. But for us, we're going to say exact match. By the way, this one is not used very often, right? It's usually exact match or the approximate match we learned with VLOOKUP. All right, so I'm going to just type a 0 for exact match. Close parentheses, Control Enter. Copy it over. So it is a lookup function. Why? Because it looked up phone within a list, but it didn't go and get something. It reports the relative position. And so phone is 5, email is 4. And what is that perfect for? That is perfect for asking the question, which column in the table has the data we want to retrieve? So now, guess what? The match, we can use that inside of VLOOKUP, inside the column index number. VL tab. Well, remember that thing right there. In fact, we can even cut just so it's not visually messing with us, right? Oh, whew. This is just a straight VLOOKUP. All right, so lookup. Well, I'm looking up this ID, F4, comma. Where's the table? This whole table right here, F4, comma, column index. Well, I don't want to have to manually do it, so I'm going to Control V and just put that match there. Remember, we can click on it. That whole thing, it's just a match. It's telling us the relative position. Oh, and look, it's going to always look at above. That's a relative cell reference right there. It's always going to look above and go and figure out which column it is or relative position it is in this list. So I come to the end. And now for VLOOKUP, we need to tell it approximate or false. I'm putting a 0. That's why I always like to use a 0, even if it's in VLOOKUP. You could tell the screen tip, this is VLOOKUP. And you could see right here, the range lookup. And I see the false, but I know I'm putting a 0. That's pretty wild there. Lookup value for VLOOKUP is the ID. Table array for VLOOKUP is that whole table. Column index, it's whatever match spits out, relative position. That lookup 0 there is for VLOOKUP. Control Enter and copy it over. So this is convenient in many ways. We can certainly just change our record. And instantly we get our data. Notice that these columns can be in any order. And guess what? I can simply, because this is a formula input, this is a field name right up here. So if I change this to last, guess what? The formula down here, match, will go, hey, where is it? 1, 2. That 2 will be reported to the VLOOKUP. Enter, and it returns, all right, right down there. Boom, boom, boom. So match to return relative position. VLOOKUP and match. Now, one other thing about this formula right here. Notice it had to determine, VLOOKUP and match together had to determine what? It had to determine a row and a column. So another way to think of this when using VLOOKUP and match together is, yes, VLOOKUP looked up this ID, it determined the row number. It was the last row in the table. And then the match, if I were to hit F9, it determined the column number. So another way to think of VLOOKUP and match together is doing a two-way lookup. Which row, which column? Control Z. Now there's some other situations for retrieving records, and I'm going to skip this. I'll come back to these. Let's scroll down here. Now, we can use D functions. And now we've seen dcount, dcounta, dsum, but there's also a dget, and get means go get a record. Now, equals dget. And just like earlier when we saw D functions, you need the whole database, and it must have field names. So the whole data set, F4 to lock it. Comma, you need the field. That means the field upon which you want to do some action. We want to go get whatever's in the first name column. That's a relative reference. As we copy it over, it'll work dynamically just like the match and VLOOKUP. Comma, and then the criteria, field name and criteria below, F4 to lock it. Oh, that is so cool. DGET to look something up. Control, close parentheses, Control Enter, and copy it over. And that's exactly what we got up above. If we were to change this, absolutely works. And of course, if we change this to phone, instantly it updates just like the VLOOKUP and match. Now the drawback, as we saw before, to the D functions is that they're hard to copy to a bunch of cells. So if you were looking up a bunch of records like this, and there's lots of other situations where you're using the index and VLOOKUP, or later we'll see index and match, and you want to copy it down and over, the dget or the D functions won't do it. So VLOOKUP. Now the only trick here is that we want it locked when we go across the column. So B, C, D. We do not want that A to move. So F4 3 times to lock the A. But don't lock the 45, because as we copy it down, we need it to move to 46, 47, comma, the table, F4, comma, and now we need our match. We're looking this up. Now, as we copy down, we need it locked on first. So I'm going to need that 44 to remain locked. So F4, lock the 44, but not the B. But when I copy it over from the B column to the C column, I want B to move to C. So I leave that column reference not locked, comma, and I have to go up and get my field names in essence. So whenever you're using the match like this, you're getting the field names. F4, comma, 0 exact match. Now watch the screen tip. It's so important when you're typing out a function inside of a function to watch the screen tip. Close parentheses. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, lookup. Oh, so column index, the match is just going to deliver something to tell VLOOKUP which column, comma, and now I'm back to what kind of lookup for VLOOKUP. I'm putting a 0 for exact match. Now this will work. Copy it over and double click and send it down. So there's a bunch of different situations for when you're looking up records. Index and match is the most versatile because it's totally dynamic. Fields don't have to be in the same order. The field actually, the column headers here, the field names can change, and instantly it updates. D is great. It's the easiest if you're just copying it and getting one record. And then, of course, we saw the easier methods up here with typing the column numbers in the cells, or totally hardcoding them right into the formula. Now, there's one other situation, or in fact two. Sometimes you don't have the field names at all. You want to select from a drop-down, and you just want all of the elements from that record to appear vertically or horizontally. Well, in this case, since we don't want to have to hard code the numbers in 2, 3, 4, 5, we need a formula element that as it's copied will increment numbers. And to do that vertically, meaning in a column like this, as we copy down across the rows, we want it to say 2, 3, 4, 5. We can use the rows. Now, rows is not complicated. You give it a range like here. How many rows are there between C33 and C35? There are 3. 3, 4, 5. That's all rows does. If I say instead, how many rows are here? Well, it's going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 rows, 33 to 36. Now, here's the trick to getting a formula element like this to increment. So as I copy down, I want it to always give me 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to imagine that this rows is in A33. I'm going to type shift colon. That's kind of weird. A33 to A33. Well, that would return a 1, and you can even prove it to yourself, right? But what would happen if we locked just this 33 with the F4 key? Now, as I copy this down, 33 is not allowed to move, but this 33 is allowed to move. This is called an expandable range. Control Enter, copy down. Wow, look at that. No, right there, 33 to 33, there's 1 row. Enter F2, 33 to 34, 2 rows. Notice the 34 is allowed to move. Enter F2, 33 is still locked. That 30, whatever that number is moving up 1 each time. So rows is successively reporting 1, 2, 3, 4. Now for the VLOOKUP, we're going to need 2, 3, 4. So we're going to add 1 plus 1. Oh, that is cool. And what's so cool about it, I'm actually going to copy this. Control C, and I'm going to put it right into my VLOOKUP. Equals VLOOKUP, lookup value, F4 to lock it, comma, I'm going to go get my table. The whole thing, F4, and comma. Now I need column numbers. And forget that rows is talking about rows. When I Control V, remember, it's just incrementing some number. The trick was to use rows because we're copying it down across the rows. But it's just getting some number, 2, 3, 4. Column index doesn't care where the number's from. It doesn't care if it's from rows or any other place if you type it in. That formula element is reporting F9, 2. And VLOOKUP can understand that. Hey, second column. Control Z. Comma, and then we need exact match. Control Enter, and copy it down. Now I'm going to delete these right here. So see, what's nice about this is it's actually, that 33 part is self-contained in this column here. If we came over here and deleted a bunch of stuff, it wouldn't matter. It's self-contained. This little formula element right here will increment numbers inside of the formula. Let's go ahead and click here and use formulas. Evaluate, or Alt-MV, and watch it. Enter. Now watch the rows. It's going to say how many rows. There should be 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. That 4 is sitting in the column number index for VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP will go to the 4th column, and boom, it delivers the email. Now there's a parallel to rows. Notice we're copying it down across the rows, so we needed this expandable range to get bigger as we copied down. Well, there's a columns, and columns simply says how many columns. So if I were to highlight E to F, count it on your fingers, EF, there's 2. So we'll do the same trick here. I'm sitting in D32, $, D32, colon D32. Now, what's so nice about this is now as we copy to the side, the nice thing about this is the letter after D is E, and then F, and then G. So because we didn't put a $ in front of it, it will be allowed to move. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I click right here, D to F, that's 3 columns. So column says how many columns are there in this range. We need +1. Oh, look. So it's incrementing numbers just like it did here, but this formula element does it horizontally. So now I can VLOOKUP. We'll do our trick again. I'm going to Control X. I've already entered it, so I know if I escape or something, it'll still be there. I'm going to Control X, just so it's not there to visually clutter. And I'm going to say VLOOKUP. Hey, I'm looking this up. F4, comma, within that whole table. F4, comma, and then Control V. That's our number incrementer, comma, and then exact match, so I'm doing 0. And so this is a way to display a record horizontally, depending on what we choose here, without any dependence on typing the column number into our formula or field names like DGET and match and VLOOKUP would need. Wow, that's a lot. That was 7 different ways to retrieve a record. All right, we'll see you next video.